Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down a pretty terrifying event where the sky just went dark over a city of 10 million people, an event where the rain itself literally turned to poison. This is the incredible story of Tehran's black rain. To really get what happened here, we gotta go back to the morning of March 8th. Let's try and put ourselves in the shoes of Tehran's residents, because they woke up to a morning that was anything but normal. Can you imagine that feeling? It's hours after the sun is supposed to be up, but you look outside and it is pitch black. For millions of people, this was their reality. As one resident said, they were just sure their clock was broken because the sun, it just hadn't risen. Now, this wasn't just some heavy cloud cover. The air itself felt wrong, hostile. Another resident described this horrifying feeling of poisonous smoke just going into her lungs with every single breath she took. And this thing, whatever it was, it had an immediate and draining physical effect on the whole population. People started reporting this sudden, deep exhaustion, and it came with this foul, overpowering smell of burning that was just everywhere. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. So what was coming down from the sky? It was an oily, black, toxic rain. The World Health Organization flagged it right away as a major health hazard. So what on earth could cause something like this? How does rain turn black?
Well, the answer wasn't a natural disaster or some freak weather event. Nope. This was entirely man-made.
So here's how it all went down, and it happened incredibly fast. It all kicked off in the morning with targeted bombings on Iran's oil infrastructure. This was all happening during a time of serious regional tension. Just minutes later, that sparked these massive fires at 4 different oil depots and a production facility. And then a few hours after that, the result was a gigantic plume of pollutants shooting into the atmosphere, creating that dark cloud that just blotted out the sun over Tehran. But hold on. How does smoke from a fire, even a huge one, turn into an oily, black rain that's actually falling from the sky? The science behind it is both really fascinating and, frankly, absolutely horrifying. See, what's so important here is that we are not talking about simple wood smoke from a campfire, because this came from burning industrial oil facilities. The cloud was what experts call a basket of chemicals, a really complex and incredibly dangerous mixture. So what exactly was in that basket? Well, it was a seriously toxic cocktail. You've got things like sulfur compounds. That's the same stuff that makes acid rain. And it was all mixed up with sticky oil particles and even heavy metals. This entire airborne sludge was just sitting there in the air above Tehran, waiting for the weather to change. Okay, so to get what happens next, you need to know about this natural process called atmospheric scavenging. And normally, this is a good thing. As clean rain falls, it actually washes pollutants out of the air. But in this case, that very same process turned against the city in the worst way possible. You can think of it as a sponge effect. When a totally normal, clean rain system moved in, the pollution was so thick that every single water droplet acted like a tiny sponge. As these droplets fell, they just soaked up all that soot and oil and chemicals from the air. So by the time the rain actually hit the ground, it wasn't really water anymore. It was toxic, it was oily, and it was black. So I really want to be crystal clear on this point. This is nothing like the seasonal smog that you might see in cities like Lahore or New Delhi. That stuff is a chronic issue, right? It's caused by traffic, weather patterns. This was a sudden, artificially created event from a massive industrial fire, which made it chemically different and just far, far more dangerous. And as if all of that wasn't bad enough, the situation was about to get catastrophically worse. And it was all because of Tehran's unique geography. You kind of have to picture the city's location to get this. It's not on some open plain. It sits in a large basin, almost like a bowl, with these really high mountains on nearly every side. And those mountains, they basically formed a natural wall. That massive toxic cloud had nowhere to go. It couldn't just blow away and disperse. The city and its 10 million people were effectively sealed inside a poisonous bubble with no way out. The consequences, as you can imagine, were immediate, and they were widespread. Hospitals reported a huge surge in patients with severe breathing problems. People all over the city were dealing with intense skin and eye irritation, not to mention these debilitating headaches from breathing in that toxic air. But the long-term dangers, they're even more frightening. The World Health Organization confirmed that there were carcinogenic compounds in the air and in the rain. What that means is an increased risk of skin and lung cancer down the line. With the most vulnerable, kids, the elderly, people with existing health problems, they're the ones facing the greatest threat. The impact of an event like this doesn't just stop at the city limits. The fallout just keeps spreading. In fact, the Pakistan Meteorological Department actually issued a warning. They said that the very same pollutants hanging over Tehran could easily be carried by wind currents into neighboring regions, like Pakistan's Balochistan province, and threaten them with the exact same contaminated acid rain. And that's the terrifying ripple effect, right? A single event like this, it just triggers a whole cascade of environmental destruction. It poisons the soil, it destroys crops, it seeps into the ground and contaminates the drinking water. It pollutes rivers and waterways for years to come, poisoning the entire food chain. And that kind of brings us to a really fundamental point. On other planets, it might rain diamonds or sulfuric acid. But here on Earth, it rains water. And that simple life-giving cycle is what makes our entire planet habitable. And that forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. The black rain of Tehran, yeah, it was caused by a very specific event. But as we continue to pollute our atmosphere from countless sources all over the world, are we just slowly creating a global version of this exact same disaster? How long will the rain that gives us all life remain safe?